Let's be real, cousins can be a bunch of punks. I've fought most of my cousins. I mean, who hasn't? But if there's a silver lining to our juvenile need for violence, it's that at least me and my cousins didn't start a world war. The First World War pit 3 cousins against one another: King George V of Britain, Kaiser Wilhelm II of the German Empire, and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. Now that we have the clickbait out of the way, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's take it from the top. This woman, who looks like everyone's senile granny, is Queen Victoria. And true to her appearance, she was known as the grandmother of Europe. Now, before you make any snide remarks, no, that is not a reference to her promiscuity. She married this dude, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. The European granny and Prince Longname had 9 children and 42 grandchildren. Once again, before you pass any crude remarks, there was no birth control in those days. Lord knows what would have happened to you in those times. After the Napoleonic Wars, Britain was worried about a power exerting dominance over the entire continent, especially since the French dictator had given a blueprint to everyone. So, Victoria went out about town, orchestrating royal marriages for her slew of offspring. She thought that by expanding the royal family, she could ensure a harmonious Europe that wouldn't go to war due to their familial ties. Here's the catch, however. She was wrong. When Victoria passed away in 1901, the British crown went to her son, Albert Edward, and then his son, George V. In 1910, the son of Victoria's oldest daughter became Kaiser Wilhelm II. Alex or Alexandra, a granddaughter of Victoria, married Nicholas II of the Russian Romanov dynasty. George only inherited the crown because his older brother died and was rather unprepared for the job. He had been trained as a naval officer and spoke only one language. This mattered to his cousin Wilhelm, as he spoke perfect English, German, and historians believe Dutch, Russian, and French. Wilhelm's relatives, quite understandably, were not big fans of his injured left hand or his personality. He had a difficult childhood and grew up to be a resentful, bitter man with a temper. The last leader of the cousin trinity, Nicholas II, was a solitary family man who did not appreciate the responsibilities of a czar. In the early 20th century, the stage of European politics looked like this. You had the Triple Entente of the Russian Empire, the French Republic, and the United Kingdom on one hand, and the Triple Alliance of the German Empire, the Austria-Hungarian Empire, and Italy on the other. Oh, they also had the Ottomans on their side. When a Serbian nationalist assassinated Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke of Austria, the Austro-Hungarian Empire wanted to exact revenge on the Serbians. Now, if the Austrians were to put pressure on them, the Russians would come to Serbian aid. Austria needed some backup against the Russian Empire in case of an escalation, so they asked Kaiser Wilhelm for support. The Kaiser agreed, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire declared war on Serbia. The Russian Tsar wrote to his German cousin, asking him to help resolve the conflict. Wilhelm did what girls out of your league do, he didn't reply. Wilhelm remembered his promise to the Austrians, so after a few days, he declared war on Russia. The First World War was well underway. You had Georgie Boy and Nico going against their own flesh and blood, the Willy Man. Wait, that doesn't sound right. After Germany's defeat in 1918, Wilhelm was exiled and lived the rest of his life in the Netherlands because, I don't know if you remember, he knew the language. Meanwhile, George V shed his dynasty's name to distance himself from the Germans, opting instead for the House of Windsor. The Russian Tsar was busy commanding his armies overseas and had left his wife in charge of political matters at home. The country was in dire conditions: poverty, disease, famine, and she was taking advice from Rasputin. When the Bolsheviks took matters into their own hands, Nicholas II reached out to George V for asylum. George claimed that he was a tyrant and did not deserve any sympathy from the British. So, after the Tsar abdicated, he was put under house arrest and eventually shot to death. The thought of 3 mischievous cousins driving an entire continent to war sounds amusing, but when you realize that their actions were responsible for the deaths of around 20 million people, it really puts into perspective what a family beef can lead to. So even though they got on your nerves, you should never go to war against your family. At least, not literally. Well, thanks for tuning into History Hub. If there's any interesting historical events you'd like us to go over, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time!